everyone, thanks again for tuning into Sin's Workshop. We're having a wonderful day. Alright, so today we're going to be talking about The First Sister by Lyndon A.Lewis. I have to say I was really very interested in this novel. So, I would say it's definitely appropriate for young adult audiences, but it's also very appropriate for adult audiences. You know, it's not inappropriate, I thought, but it is very similar to The Handmaid's Tale. And I've seen young adult renditions of The Handmaid's Tale done before, like with the Wither series. Here, it's kind of... There is the same concept to The Handmaid's Tale, which does allow the book to be for a more mature audiences. I just wanted to start by saying that. Now, the story itself, it's a space opera, science fiction. I love space operas. Definitely a huge fan of space. I'm definitely a huge fan of space operas. I think they're really interesting, very unique. It's like they're just epics, you know? And I really do get that feel of this story from The First Sister. And it follows three very distinct perspectives, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a second because I really do want to highlight sisters. And then you have Leto, is it Leto? And then you have Hero. So the first sister, she doesn't really have a name, she doesn't have a voice. She is part of the sisterhood, and they're like kind of like the reigning religion of the galaxy. What they do is they take in young girls and they groom them to be sisters. So you have sisters, you have aunts, you have the mother. You know, the mother is pretty much, I guess, the Pope. You could draw that equivalence right there. She, at a young age, when she passed her final test, her vocal cords were snipped. She lost the inability to talk. And when you're a sister and you lose your inability to talk, I really do feel like that's such a way to just silence a victim, you know, because they are victims. They were children. They had no idea what it meant to be a sister. They are only allowed to communicate with sign language. They're not allowed to write. They're not allowed to do anything. They function as priests in a way. So they're put on ships and they are there to give away their bodies to anyone on the ship, regardless of your gender. They're there to allow people to vent out their frustrations and distractions. And when you read that, you're just like, oh my God, these poor girls, you know? And you really do feel for the first sister because it starts off, the captain of the ship is retiring. He promised to take her with him. So she can finally escape this life, you know? She can finally just retire. But turns out he abandoned her there. So then she's employed by the sisterhood again to get close to the new captain, to spy on the new captain, Saito Ren. And you really do see like these growing buds of revolution in her, and you see them through, again, she has no dialogue. She does not get to talk. She does grow closer to Saito Ren, but that's because he allows her freedom without the cost of her body. So she grows very fond, even falls in love with Saito Ren, who allows her to write. He allows her to communicate. He allows her to be truthful and honest, you know, without the cost of her body. And I think that's really interesting, that you're really able to get to know who the first sister is through her mannerisms, through her internal narrative, through her emotions, her needs, her wants, her pain, her guilt, her anger. You're really getting to know in depth who this character is. And that's what I thought was really striking of the story, because it does have a bit of a slow pace at times. Again, space operas do tend to have a slow pace. They do have high tension moments of that, there's no doubt, but they do tend to be slower paced stories because they are an opera, basically. It's a whole thing that's going on. You're invested in the story, you're invested in the characters, and you really do grow invested in the first sister. You want her to rebel. You want her to spit in the face of the sisterhood and bring them down from the inside out. And you're so driven by that the pacing of the story doesn't even matter because you are really invested in her characterization. Now, as for Leto, his is the second perspective. He actually does get to talk. So he rose from the slums. He rose up through the ranks as a soldier of Venus. And you're really seeing where he came from. His devotion to his sister, which I think is really interesting. And I really do like the devotion he has with his sister. And the partnership he had with Hero, who was his former partner. You know, he's been given this mission, like, hey, you lost this very important battle for us. In order to regain your honor, you have to go hunt down your former partner because we think he's rebelled. We think he's part of a rebellion now. So it really does put him at odds with kind of his core beliefs and who he is as a character. He doesn't want to just do what needs to be done. He has morals, he has ethics, and you're really invested in who he is. I would say for me personally, I was more invested in the first sister and Hero because I thought they were much more fascinating characters. But that being said, I did like his development. I did like the way his story grew and how, again, it did add. You know, I do love it when, if you're going to go between different perspectives in a storytelling, my biggest pet peeve is if they're not cohesive, if they're not fluid, if they're not, you know, well done, well structured to the point where they build the others up, even if they have nothing to do with one another. These two storylines, they don't come off as separate at all. They do, you kind of see as the story is evolving, as the plot is evolving, how they build each other up, even though they have absolutely no interaction with one another. And that's what I think is really cool. Again, space opera. You're involved in the development of the story. You're involved in these characterizations. You are intrigued by what is happening in the story. As for Hero, I have to say, what I found most fascinating about his perspective is we're getting to know them, because they are a non-binary character. You're getting to know them by recordings they left for Leto. That's what I thought was really cool. That their voice it's very honest, if that makes sense. I don't really know how to put it to words. It's unfiltered. It really feels so unfiltered to the reader. It feels brutal, it feels honest. So you're really getting to the core of who Hero is as a character. And I thought that was really compelling. You're getting to know him through his past, through his relationship with his father, with the relationship he had with Leto, why he decided to become a soldier, even though he didn't really want to be a soldier. Why he's on the path trying to break it. Why they are on the path that they're on now. And I think that's really interesting to see them develop in such a core way, in such an unfiltered and honest way. I thought that was so well done. That's why, again, this is why I like his perspective and the first sister's perspective the most, because through her, you're not seeing any dialogue. People around her are talking, sure, and she talks in sign language. Again, no voice, but her internal narrative is just so powerful and compelling that it draws the reader in. Now, as for Hero, their perspective is just unfiltered recordings. We do get to see Hero at the end of the story, but by then you already know who this character is, what their core is. And I think that that's what's really a driving point for this story and why you're so invested in it. Again, it is a little bit slow paced. For about the first half, it is kind of, you know, leisurely jog, and then once you hit the halfway mark, the tension starts to rise. You really do get to see that rising tension through these characters' perspectives, and I think that's what really makes the story golden. Yes, again, it does have similarities to The Handmaid's Tale, but it is very mature while also being youthful at the same time. You can, like, trying to put it into words. It's not really functioning well for me, sorry. It's just, it feels like a young adult novel, but it also feels like if you go to the bookstore, you wouldn't find it in the young adult novel, you would find it in the science fiction section, if you know what I mean. So it feels very mature. It's very artistic. You know, the detailing is great. The characterization is great. The pacing, I love the pacing personally. So I think this was a very compelling story to read because of how it does have a lot of depth, a lot of subtext. It kind of does deal with, you know, the rights of a woman's body. Wait, you know, why we can't have control over our own bodies, but go figure. It does deal with having control over your own body. It does deal with marrying outside of your race. It does deal with racism. It does deal with immigration. You know, it deals with a lot of really good social themes in a very interesting way. You're going to see the themes. They're there. They're powerful. They're compelling. And in the science fiction world, I love how you can use your medium to address issues, really big issues in the real world, and make them more relatable or make them more intangible to readers so that we're thinking about it, we're aware of it. And I like books that make you think. Yeah, sometimes I just want to read a book just to read a book, but I also do love subtext. I like reading science fiction. I love reading fantasy. I love reading young adult books that do address social themes, even if it's in their own medium. So, xenophobia, that's what's in this book. So, women's rights, xenophobia, immigration, marrying out of your race. I mean, these are all themes that are addressed in the story, and you really do get to see the impact it has on these characters as a whole. So it really does give a lot of depth and subtext to the story overall. So once again, this was The First Sister. I'm going to go ahead and give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. It really was a good story. I really did enjoy it. It just didn't blow me away. Again, when I first started reading it, I wasn't sure if I was going to like it or not because I did feel like the pacing was just a little slow. I felt like the themes were just a little like heavy in the beginning. But as the story evolved, as you got to know these characters, I was hooked. I was hooked. Just took me a couple chapters, but I honestly really did like reading it, and I'm really excited for the sequel that's coming out later this year, The Second Rebel. So can't wait to see where this story is going to go, honestly. I think it's going to be good. So once again, The First Sister, Lyndon a.lewis, by Lyndon a.lewis, gets 4.5 out of 5 stars. If you want to go ahead and purchase the book, I will include a link in the description below. If you don't want to use that link, perfectly fine. Just please support your local bookseller and your local bookstore or preferred online book retailer by purchasing the book from them and not Amazon. That's all I ask. If money's tight, please check out the book from your local library. Libraries are a great resource for the community and definitely deserve all the support they can get. And on that note, I hope you all will continue to support me by liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Please don't forget to share this with all your book-loving friends. You can also become a supporter on Buy Me a Coffee or by purchasing one of my handmade candles. There are links in the description below. You all have a great rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.